My marriage hit a wall a few months back. I've been in Atlanta visiting my brother. I chose to go to Atlanta because, of course, Martell and I have children together. So it's important, while I do need time and space away, it is still also important for me to be, in an area or a distance that's not too far, so that there's not an issue when it comes to exchanging the kids and custody and things of that.
He once built houses and a perfect image of success. But now Martell Holt is watching his entire life collapse inside a courtroom. The question is, will he also lose his children? When the court delivers its final ruling concerning Melody, Martell Holt is hit with a wave of emotion that he can no longer hold back. The man who once prided himself on discipline, composure, and control breaks under the weight of a reality too heavy to perform his way out of. Tears blur his vision, washing away the confidence that had long seemed permanent. The confidence he wore like a uniform in public. For Martell, this was more than just a legal setback, it was the unraveling of a persona years in the making. For most of his adult life, Martell carried himself as though he were starring in a movie about his own success. He knew how to walk into a room with his shoulders squared, chin lifted, and smile gleaming just enough for the camera lights. His suits were tailored with precision, his hair immaculately groomed, and his stride radiated the swagger of a man who believed he had already won before the battle even began. This image became his armor, a costume he rarely took off. It was the performance of a man convinced that the world was buying what he was selling. And for a while, they were. When Love and Marriage, Huntsville first aired, audiences were introduced to Martell not as a man in turmoil but as one half of a polished, ambitious power couple. Together with Melody Shari, his then-wife, he projected the embodiment of Black excellence, young, attractive, articulate, and driven. The two didn't just flip houses, they constructed a brand around love, family, and prosperity. Their story seemed like one of upward mobility and teamwork, the kind of narrative that inspired viewers who wanted to see themselves reflected in a story of success and possibility. They weren't simply building homes in Huntsville, they were building a cultural moment. On screen, they smiled together, spoke with confidence about their plans, and positioned themselves as the blueprint for entrepreneurial partnership. Viewers tuned in to watch their progress, to see how far they could climb, to cheer for their wins. Too many, Martell and Melody looked like the real estate royalty of their city, turning bricks and mortar into legacy. But life has a way of complicating the stories we try to script for ourselves. What plays well on television doesn't always hold up in real life. The very spotlight that elevated Martell and Melody also magnified their fractures. What began as subtle cracks in the foundation of their marriage grew harder to conceal with each passing season. Each episode, each social media post that revealed more than it intended. Martell, who once thrived on the applause, began to falter under the scrutiny. The charm that once made him appear invincible now looked like bravado masking insecurity. The man who once positioned himself as the picture of certainty suddenly seemed uncertain, exposed, and, at times, reckless. The contrast between the man and the myth became unavoidable. In the carefully edited introductions of the show, Martell appeared as a husband with vision, a father with purpose, and a businessman with unstoppable drive. But the unedited realities told a different story, a story of strained communication, of mounting tension, of trust broken in ways that could not be glossed over with smiles or sound bites. When the curtain of reality finally dropped, the truth was difficult to ignore. The image was never the full picture. Behind the curated Instagram posts and polished television appearances was a man at war with himself, clinging to the facade of control even as his world slowly slipped beyond his grasp. This is where the court's ruling cuts. Deeper than a legal technicality, it represents more than just a loss on paper. For Martell, it is the public acknowledgement of what many had already begun to suspect, that the narrative he worked so hard to build had collapsed. The tears he shed were not only for the verdict itself but for the end of an illusion, the end of the character he had spent years portraying. To understand the magnitude of this moment, one must look beyond the courtroom walls and into the symbolic weight of Martell's fall. Here was a man who, not long ago, stood as a beacon of possibility in a genre of television often defined by chaos and spectacle. He and Melody appeared to offer something different, aspirational story wrapped in the authenticity of their partnership. They were proof, at least for a moment, that success and love could coexist. That Black family life could be celebrated and televised in a way that uplifted rather than diminished. But reality television has a way of stripping characters bare. It doesn't just document successes, it amplifies flaws. For Martell, the exposure of his mistakes became inseparable from his identity. Each misstep played out in front of a national audience. Each crack in the facade became a storyline, And once the narrative shifted from ambitious family man to scandal-driven antagonist, it was nearly impossible to shift it back. His downfall was not immediate. It came in increments, layered mistake upon mistake, each decision compounding the next. But by the time the court delivered its final ruling on Melody's case, the weight of all those choices came crashing down. The swagger, the smile, the persona, none of it could save him in that moment. The court doesn't rule on charisma. Judges aren't swayed by a tailored suit or a confident stride. The legal system is not an audience to be entertained. It is an institution that deals in facts, evidence, and consequences. And so, in that courtroom, Martell stood not as the star of a reality show or the face of a brand, but as a man confronted by the realities of his own actions. No amount of rehearsed charm could undo what had already been done. No carefully crafted image could erase the record in black and white. For viewers who had followed his journey since the early days of Love and Marriage, Huntsville, the ruling served as a sobering reminder of how far he had fallen. For Melody, it was vindication not only in the eyes of the law but also in the broader court of public opinion. For Martell, it was a reckoning. The emotional breakdown that followed was not just about losing in court. It was about the collapse of identity. A man who once believed he could control the story, who once believed he could outwit the narrative, now found himself powerless against it. The stage was no longer his, the spotlight no longer flattering. The applause, once taken for granted, had turned into silence. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson embedded in this moment. When you build your life as a performance, the truth eventually catches up. Carefully crafted images can inspire, entertain, and even deceive for a time, but they cannot hold against reality forever. Martell Holt's tears were not simply the product of one ruling, but of years spent believing that the role he played was more powerful than the life he lived. In the end, the court's decision didn't just strip him of legal ground, it stripped him of the illusion that had defined him. And for a man who once saw himself as the protagonist of a story built on success, that loss is perhaps the most devastating of all.
But there's still certain things we need to talk about.
No, go and keep going.
You talking like that.
Yeah, no.
I don't want my kids to be around that.
Get out.
And every time Martell Holt does something, Melody, she runs social media and put my out there. But
Martell's decline hasn't been sudden, it's been unfolding slowly, almost visibly, for years. The court's latest ruling didn't spark the downfall, it only deepened it. The turning point came in August 2025, when a Madison County Circuit Court confirmed what had been circulating in hushed conversations for months. Martell wasn't just the man accused of infidelity or stirring drama for reality TV ratings. He now carried a far weightier label: guilty of domestic violence and harassment twice. This wasn't tabloid chatter or exaggerated reality show storytelling. It was documented fact, etched into court records, impossible to dismiss. And from this point forward, the narrative around him shifted into something far more serious.
all the things that have gone on both sides of the fence, Melody and myself, I really don't see Melody and I ever getting back together. And I just see who Melody really is, because I feel that her heart, for real, her heart isn't good.
This time, Martell didn't even try to fight back. After his first conviction in Huntsville's municipal court back in May 2024, life handed him a choice: rebuild with honesty or keep rolling the dice. He chose the gamble, filing an appeal and clinging to hope that luck might tilt his way. But when the case escalated to circuit court over a year later, he once again entered a guilty plea. The outcome didn't change. The sentence mirrored the earlier one, now, with no appeals left to file and no bargains left to strike. He's left staring at the permanence of his record like a stain that refuses to wash out. And from here, the real conversation becomes unavoidable. What happens when the consequences finally catch up?
Well, Love and Marriage Huntsville TV star Martell Holt was recently arrested for domestic violence. The 42-year-old was booked into the Madison County Jail last night. Holt was charged with third-degree domestic violence and harassing communications.
On paper, Martell's sentence might not seem earth-shattering. A no-contact order with Melody, fines, probation, and a 30-day jail term that was ultimately suspended. But the true weight of it isn't in the words, it's in the timing. These rulings came just months before a custody trial that could decide whether Martell would be allowed unsupervised access to his children. In Alabama's family courts, a domestic violence conviction isn't just a blemish, it's often the final blow to a parent's credibility. For co-parenting, it's not a setback. It's a near-certain disqualification. Melody understands this reality all too well. Patient and deliberate, she has been waiting for the moment when the scales would inevitably tip in her favor.
Y'all still going through this, man? What do you think the problem is?
I don't...
Martell.
She don't want nobody seeing that she's actually working with me in terms of effective co-parenting. She don't want nobody to see that. She don't want nobody to see that she's being nice or cool with me. It gotta be. What else could it be? One thing about I'm trying to stay peaceful. No, because I don't mess up your peace. I don't say anything wrong. I don't do anything wrong. It's all about the kids. She can call my phone and talk to the kids whenever, and I don't have a number to call my kids when they're with her. I just want her to do right.
For years, Melody has carried the weight of raising 4 children while navigating a storm of online abuse, courtroom battles, and the very public unraveling of her marriage. Each time Martell lashes out, whether on television, social media, or in legal filings, it only cements the image of a man still unwilling to learn, still clinging to control, and still capable of causing harm. The eyes of both the judge and the public remain fixed on him, and with every misstep, his chances in the custody fight shrink as October 15th approaches. His failed appeal isn't the only issue. What resonates even more is the pattern he's carved. Twice choosing to plead guilty rather than risk a full trial. That choice, repeated, speaks volumes. But Martell's crisis runs deeper than courtroom verdicts. He is not only losing his legal battles, he's losing the narrative he once controlled. Once praised as a driven husband with a grand vision, he has become a cautionary tale. A man who let pride, bitterness, and ego dismantle everything that could have been enduring. The fan base that once defended him has thinned. Even longtime viewers are tired of the drama, tired of the excuses, tired of watching potential rot into chaos. At this point, the story isn't just about Martell's downfall, it's about the children, and whether their memories will be defined by peace and stability, or endless courtrooms and conflict. For Melody, that's the real battle at stake. For Martell, it may be his last chance to prove he can still matter as a father. His decline wasn't an overnight fall. It was built, choice by choice, out of denial and misplaced pride. The cracks first appeared when Melody revealed his infidelity, not a fleeting mistake, but a long-term affair that played out like an open wound across headlines and reality TV. Instead of repairing the damage, Martell leaned into chaos, painting himself as misunderstood while evidence piled against him. Divorce followed, stripping away what little control he thought he had left. Co-parenting, already delicate in the best of circumstances, became nearly impossible under the weight of missed payments, controlling behavior, and Martell's refusal to let Melody move on. The pattern extended far beyond the personal. He took jabs at her music, tried to undercut her businesses, stirred up unnecessary drama on the show, and filed legal claims that rarely held up in court. By mid-2024, the situation had grown so strained that a judge formally warned him, comply with the court's orders or risk losing visitation altogether. Along with the warning came a $7,000 penalty in legal fees, a sign that the court's patience was wearing thin. Just months later, in October, Martell suffered another loss when Melody secured yet another court victory and his counterclaims were dismissed. By then, the pattern was undeniable. What once looked to audiences like reality TV exaggeration was now confirmed in legal documents, courtrooms, and judges' warnings. The editing of the show wasn't painting Martell in a negative light. Real life was. With every new receipt, every filing, every guilty plea, the truth grew louder. Martell's account of events wasn't simply skewed, it was dangerous. And now, with 2 convictions for domestic violence and harassment, the stakes have shifted beyond public opinion or reality TV drama. It all comes down to October 2025. The custody trial looms over everything, a final stage where the consequences of years of decisions, battles, and refusals to change will come into sharp focus. For Melody, it's about her children's future. For Martell, it's about the last thread of credibility he has left to hold onto. In Alabama family courts, domestic violence is a red line one judges treat with gravity, especially when children are involved. Even charges that stop short of physical assault, like harassment, raise red flags. For Martell, this history doesn't just follow him into the courtroom, it defines how judges view his capacity to parent. Safety and stability take precedence over everything else. Melody, meanwhile, steps into that same courtroom with momentum at her back. Each legal victory, each rejection of Martell's claims, and each ruling in her favor reinforces her position as the parent, more capable of providing a steady environment. And while public opinion carries no weight in court, it does shape everything else: business opportunities, sponsorships, reputation, and influence. Martell's image is collapsing, while Melody's continues to rise. Away from the courthouse, his personal life is equally turbulent. Since separating from Melody, his relationships have been fleeting, disorganized, and public, often confirming the very instability he denies. Financially, the pressure mounts: legal fees, fines, child support, and the unpredictable income of reality TV. Once your name becomes associated with chaos, the business calls begin to dry up. What was once a question of repairing his reputation is now a fight to keep hold of his children and salvage whatever dignity remains. When Love and Marriage Huntsville first aired, Martell and Melody embodied the image of Black excellency, thriving real estate business for children, and a carefully curated brand. But television has a way of peeling back layers. The affair wasn't just another scandal for the cameras. It was a deep betrayal that shattered both their partnership and the illusion they had built. As Martell wavered between denial and damage control, Melody allowed her pain to be visible, unfiltered, and real. Their divorce wasn't quiet paperwork. It was an all-out war, fought through episodes, interviews, and social media. In the aftermath, Melody chose a different path. She leaned into independence, turning suffering into purpose and drawing supporters who admired her resilience. Martell, on the other hand, wanted redemption but not accountability, grace without growth. His attempts to control the narrative often overshadowed his responsibilities as a co-parent. Judges don't miss those patterns, especially when they align with harassment convictions and no-contact orders. Each outburst, each misstep, became another piece of evidence in a growing file against him. By contrast, Melody's restraint became her greatest strength. Rather than engaging in petty battles, she let her actions speak. Courtroom wins, business ventures, and empowering messages that resonated with audiences. Her refusal to fuel the cycle gave her credibility both in public opinion and before the court. For her, the October custody trial is not just another day tits, the culmination of years of conflict. And if Martell loses, it won't be because of one mistake. It will be because his mistakes stacked up into something undeniable. Even if he manages to hold on to visitation, it will likely come with strict limitations: supervised visits, mandatory counseling, heightened court oversight. That is the reality he now faces. What cuts deepest is that this is no longer a matter of public image. This is about legacy. The man who once built houses now struggles to build peace in his own home. The cameras that once flattered him now expose him fully, stripping away the myth he tried so hard to preserve. Meanwhile, Melody has rewritten her own role entirely. No longer just Martell's ex-wife. She has become a brand, a voice, and a symbol for women choosing peace over chaos. Her story resonates not because of the drama but because of the strength it took to walk away from it. The show may have started with 2 stars, but it's clear who the central figure is now. Martell cannot rewrite the past. He cannot erase guilty pleas or undo court rulings. What's done is done, and the paper trail will follow him wherever he goes. The only path forward now is genuine change, not spin, not public relations maneuvers, not another round of excuses disguised as explanations. What's required is transformation, true accountability, a willingness to step away from the need to control the narrative and instead confront the choices that brought him here. At the heart of this battle, it's no longer about ratings or it has moved far beyond the realm of entertainment. The cameras can capture conflict, but they cannot raise children. They can highlight dysfunction, but they cannot heal it. This moment is about something far greater than audience perception. It's about children who deserve stability, love, and peace. It's about whether they grow up repeating cycles or breaking them. It's about whether the memories they carry into adulthood are of constant battles and tense exchanges, or of security and calm. Martell still has an opportunity to rise, but time is running short. Each court date, each social media outburst, each failed appeal chips away at the credibility he once claimed. Redemption will not come in dramatic gestures or staged apologies. It will come in the quiet, consistent work of becoming a better man, a healthier father, and a responsible co-parent. And that kind of work doesn't happen under the lights of reality television. It happens in private, when no one is watching, when the only audience that matters is his children. If he doesn't embrace that work, the show may go on, but without him in the places that truly matter. He might still appear on screen, but in the lives of his children, he risks becoming a ghost. Present in name, but absent in impact. That is the truest loss, and the most devastating consequence of all.